Hey everyone, it's iTalkApple, and in this video I'm reviewing the iPhone 4S. I know this phone has been out for a while, but I decided I wanted to use the phone for a couple of months before putting out a review. Anyway, before I get into the review, I might as well read off some specs for those of you who are interested. Keep in mind though that it doesn't really matter if the phone has the fastest processor available. All that matters is the user experience. So the iPhone, compared to a bunch of newer phones on the market, the processor speed is slightly slower, but I still think that the phone's super fast, and that's all that really matters, right? Anyway, just thought I'd put that out there. So the specs are, well, it's got an A5 chip, which is a 1 GHz dual-core processor. It's definitely faster than the iPhone 4. I wouldn't say that you notice it unless you put them side by side though, and I'll get into that more later. The graphics are also supposed to be 7 times better. Again, do I really notice the better graphics unless I put them side by side? It's got a 3.5-inch Retina display. By Retina display, we're talking really high pixel density. Specifically, it's 326 pixels per inch. And what that means is that if you zoom in all the way on a single letter in like an article or something, the edge of that letter is going to be completely smooth. You're not going to see any types of pixels. Maybe I can get an image, like side-by-side comparison of the 3GS screen and the 4S screen. Speaking of the screen size, a lot of people are disappointed that it remains 3.5 inches as opposed to 4 or even like over 4 inches, which a lot of newer smartphones are like, they've got these ginormous screens. And I think that this is really the sweet spot for smartphone size. It fits really comfortably in the palm of my hand. It fits well in a pocket, even in a girl's pocket, and the screen doesn't feel cramped. Obviously, it's nice to have a larger screen, but you have to remember that it's a phone, and I still think that web browsing and watching movies, it's still nice on the 3.5 screen. Going to the back of the phone, it's got an 8-megapixel camera with LED flash. This camera, I think, is the most improved feature of the phone. It's the most noticeable, at least. The aperture is wider. It's f2.4, so it lets in more light. The images are sharper, they're clearer, and it also performs better in low light situations. And it records in 1080p HD video at up to 30 frames per second. HD video on this thing really is great. Video quality and picture quality is nice. On the front, you have a front-facing camera. This thing is horrible. Just gonna be brutally honest there. It's horrible. So don't use it. Now on to the actual review. Let's talk about hardware first. The iPhone 4S is basically identical on the outside to the iPhone 4. There are a few subtle changes that the average consumer wouldn't notice, like the antenna placement and things like that. Anyway, it's got a glass back and a glass front with this kind of frame, and it looks great. Even though it's not a new design, it does not feel outdated at all. In fact, it still feels a lot fresher than the phones that are just coming out. I still feel like the iPhone's design is the design to beat. It's just really sleek. I like the industrial look. It's got a nice weight to it. It might take some getting used to if you're coming from an iPhone 3GS or something, or a different smartphone that's lighter, because it definitely does have a weight to it. The death grip or antenna gate issue has been fixed, so if you grip the phone like this really hard, signal strength does not decrease, so that's nice to have now, that you don't have to buy a case just because you're worried about your signal strength. I spoke about the better camera, but just to go into a little more detail, not only do the pictures look better, but the camera itself performs better. So when you take a picture, the shutter speed is a lot faster. There's no delay really in snapping a picture. The camera app launches faster, and you definitely notice that when you get this phone. You don't have to have an iPhone 4 next to you to notice the significant speed increase. And I definitely think that this phone, the camera, can replace a $150 compact digital camera. It's nice taking pictures on this thing because besides just having the camera that comes with the phone, you can download tons of apps and add different effects right on the phone. So overall, the iPhone 4S, it's got a really nice design, just like the iPhone 4, of course. It's sleek, it's really sharp looking, and like I said earlier, I still think it's the best looking phone on the market. Now I'm going to talk about, I guess, more the software side of things. It's running iOS 5, the latest version of iOS. You don't need a computer anymore to set up your iPhone or to own an iPhone. So when you turn on the phone for the first time, it's not going to say plug into iTunes. You can set everything up without a computer. So that's definitely a nice feature. iOS has not changed really at all since 2007 when the phone was first released. And although it hasn't changed and I am getting kind of bored of it, it still works really well. It's so intuitive. For those of you who don't know, which I doubt nobody knows how the iPhone works, but your icons are displayed in a grid view, I guess, and you just tap on an icon to launch an app. That simple. And you always hear about adults whose toddlers love their iPhone, and then you hear these stories about really old people who love the iPhone as well. It's obviously really intuitive. One of the features that people are most excited about on iOS 5 is Notification Center and improved notifications in general. So Notification Center can be accessed by sliding the top menu bar down, and now you can view all your notifications in one place, like missed calls or unread emails, any reminders that you have. You can view the weather, there's a stock ticker, and then apps can send you notifications and have them appear here. So for example, I get Instagram notifications when somebody likes a post of mine or follows me. I play Hanging with Friends, and whenever it's my move, I get a notification, which appears in Notification Center as well. The Messages app has been improved, so now you have something called iMessage, which means you can actually basically text anybody running iOS 5 for free, and it's unlimited. So that means not only can you text a friend who has an iPhone with iOS 5, but you can also text somebody with an iPad or an iPod Touch running iOS 5. So this makes communication a lot easier, especially if you don't have an unlimited texting plan. With iOS 5, there is a new app, and that is Reminders. It's basically a to-do list app, and it's really easy to add tasks. You just hit the plus button and type in the name of your task and a deadline, and you can check it off when it's complete. You also have different, I guess, lists, so you can categorize your task based on like home or work, or for me, I've got a YouTube list. And the best part, I think, about Reminders is that it works with location services, meaning instead of having a time for a deadline, you can actually have your phone remind you to do something when you arrive somewhere. So for example, I can say, call mom when I get to school, and if it knows my school's address, then when I get to school, I'll get a notification on my phone saying call mom. Reminders also works really well with Siri, which is the personal assistant on the iPhone 4S. Remind me to make a turkey.
When would you like me to remind you?
Today at 3 p.m.
Here's your reminder for today at 3 p.m. Shall I create it?
Another feature that I really like is the speech-to-text recognition. As you can see, it's fairly accurate. It only has a few errors, period. But it's hard to remember to add your own punctuation, such as commas, period. It's also really, really fast! Exclamation point. Another app that has been improved in iOS 5 is the Camera app. So you have a few more options with the app, and I'm actually looking at the Camera app right now. So you can overlay a grid view, So when you're taking a picture, you can compose it better, frame it better, I guess. You can also zoom in a lot more easily, so you can just pinch to zoom like you would on a photo instead of dragging that slider thing that they used to have. And then once you've taken a picture, you've got some editing options. You can enhance your picture and you can crop it. So I'm happy that they've added these features. However, I still use third-party camera apps to take pictures because they have a lot more features. Now I'm going to demonstrate Siri. Apple has advertised Siri as your personal assistant, and Siri definitely works well considering that it's still in beta. I'm still not really impressed with the speed of Siri. If you're on a 3G network, it doesn't work as fast as I'd like it to. It's one of those things that's more of a novelty than something that you'll actually use all the time. Graph y equals x squared. And it's going to use Wolfram Alpha to
Let me think.
find the graph of that equation. Should be a parabola. Come on now.
Okay, here you go.
So hopefully you can see that there's a parabola. You see there's the equation and it's using Wolfram Alpha. So, I mean, of course it got the command and everything. It just took a while. And I do think that this is really useful to have, but it's just not something that I use because of the time that it takes. Okay, so I guess to finish off the review, I'm going to talk about performance. I said earlier that the speed difference compared to the iPhone 4 really isn't noticeable unless you're comparing them side by side. Yes, it is faster, but it's not something that you notice. Like when I got the 4S and I started using it the day after using, or the same day after using my iPhone 4, I wasn't like, wow, this is so much faster. And that's something that I got jumping from the 3G to the iPhone 4. That was definitely a huge increase in speed. Now if you are jumping from the 3GS to the 4S, I'm sure there's a really significant speed increase for you. The phone is definitely really snappy, I guess. It's responsive. Although the iPhones have always been really responsive, like with zooming, using multi-touch, you don't really get like lag or delay. And I like that a lot, but that's something that I've come to expect from the iPhone. It's not like a new thing with the iPhone 4S. I said earlier that the camera is definitely the most like noticeable upgrade speed-wise and also I guess picture quality-wise. And I really do think that the camera is one of the most compelling reasons to buy the new iPhone. People have been complaining about battery life, saying that it's like horrible or underwhelming, and I haven't had a problem with it. For me, it's been pretty much the same as my iPhone 4, and I was fairly impressed with the iPhone 4 battery life. And I always have Bluetooth on because I use Bluetooth with my car. I browse the web a lot on this phone. I use a lot of apps. I don't watch videos and things like that, but I get a lot. I don't know how many hours I get out of it, to be honest, but it's probably fairly close to what Apple claims. Overall, the iPhone 4S has a bunch of really subtle changes compared to the iPhone 4. I guess to the average person they're subtle, but I like the changes. It's just the people that have an iPhone 4, whenever they ask me, should I get an iPhone 4S, I tell them no. Unless you're an Apple enthusiast and you're like crazy obsessed, or you just have like a ton of extra money to spend, then sure, go ahead, buy the iPhone 4S. The only reason that I got it, to be honest, is because my mom's contract was up and we were gonna get the 4S anyway, so I was like, hey Mom, give me your 4S. And I gave her my iPhone 4. But yeah, it's a really nice phone, and if you have never owned an iPhone before, go ahead and buy this phone. Or if you're coming from another smartphone, go ahead, I recommend it. Although, if you're watching this video and it's like January, February, March, then you might as well just wait until the iPhone 5 comes out. Anyway, Thank you very much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed the review. Let me know if you want me to cover any more features, more in depth, I guess, and I'll try to do that for you. So, yeah. Thanks again for watching, and have a nice day or night.
Sorry, Amanda. I couldn't do it. Could you try it again, please?
You're stupid.
I respect you.
Now you see, when I insult it, it responds really quickly.